Hi everyone, this is Brian Hayes and welcome to a discussion on chromatic scales for the saxophone. In my opinion, the chromatic scale is the foundation scale that any musician needs to learn regardless of whatever instrument it is that they are playing. I'll play a chromatic scale for you now on the B-flat tenor saxophone. This is an A chromatic scale on the tenor sax. Now the chromatic scale sets each new note as a semitone above or below the prior note. I'll just change to ukulele here just to demonstrate this on an instrument where it's more easily visible, the steps of the chromatic scale. This is my concert ukulele, and like all fretted instruments, you'll notice that the frets, that's these metal bars that cross the fingerboard, actually squeeze tighter together the higher up the neck you go. Now that's a physics phenomena with how you create notes on a stringed instrument. Regardless that the visual distance between those frets is getting smaller the higher up you go, if you have a listen, the pitch change stays constant. So each one of these frets is a semitone. So here we go. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. We're back one octave higher on the 12th fret of the guitar, noting that we started on fret 0, an open string. So there's your 12 notes with the 13th note. Even though it's on the 12th fret, remember, open string on the ukulele or a guitar or any stringed instrument is fret 0. So the 12th fret represents the 13th note as we go up the chromatic scale. Now back to the saxophone, I just want to talk for a moment about some special fingerings that I encourage you to use when you are playing chromatic scales or chromatically. If I go through the fingerings, and again I'm on the tenor saxophone here, but it's the same fingerings on the alto sax. If you want to play along with me on the E-flat, alto or baritone saxophone with the pitches on this tutorial, you'll simply play an E chromatic scale rather than an A chromatic scale. But I'm going to demonstrate the fingerings of an A chromatic scale here, and you can apply those to your alto and baritone saxophone in the same way that you will use these fingerings on the soprano sax. So we start with the conventional A fingering. A sharp, on the saxophone, yes, we can play the one-fingered B flat or A sharp, but it's not the ideal fingering if you've got to then play a B, because it's really difficult to slide that finger off of the little bisque key, this tiny key here that was put on the sax, specifically to play the note B flat. So the correct way in a chromatic scale to play A sharp is to use the bottom of your 3 right-hand side keys in combination with conventional A. Okay, so A to A sharp, B is the normal fingering. Now yes, you can play C using your second finger, which is the standard way to play C, but most saxophone players, when they're playing a chromatic scale, will actually use the side C, the B to C trill key. So that's the second of the 3 available right-hand side keys. So playing normal B plus the second right-hand side key gives you a chromatic C fingering. It's another way to play the note C. We then lift everything off to play C sharp. We put the octave key on to play standard D. We play D sharp in the normal way, E in the normal way, F in the normal way. Now when it comes to F sharp, some saxophone players like to use this chromatic F sharp, the F trill key. So you can see all saxophones have it. My third finger is touching it there. So holding F down and the F to F sharp trill key gives a perfect F sharp. A lot of saxophone players like to use that in a chromatic scale. I don't. I just prefer to play the standard F to F sharp in a chromatic scale. It's up to you. Certainly if I have to play an F to F sharp trill, I definitely use the key that was put on the saxophone for that purpose. So after F sharp, for me, I recommend standard F sharp fingering, then standard G sharp, and you're back to A. Now, if you have a look at the music score that's on the screen in front of you, you'll notice that B to C and E to F don't have a sharp or a flat between them, either in ascending or descending mode of the chromatic scale. That is because the pairing of notes B to C and E to F naturally occur one semitone apart. So if I play A to B, that distance is a tone, 2 semitones, because we can fit A sharp or B flat in between. If I play B to C, however, there is nowhere to put any other note in between B or C. Similarly, if we go up to E to F, those notes are automatically a semitone apart. Hence, in music theory, there is no, in a chromatic scale, they don't write E sharp or F flat, even though those notes do exist. E sharp simply is another name for F natural, F flat's another name for E natural. B sharp is another name for C, C flat is another name for B. But in the chromatic scale, those notes sit side by side. Every other note on the way up, on the top line of the music score, you'll notice has a sharp between the alphabet letters, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. These notes, which are the white keys on a piano keyboard, they're the straight 7 letters out of the music alphabet starting at A. But between every one of those notes, except B and C and E and F, you'll notice a sharp on the way up. Now on the way down in descending mode, you'll notice the same pattern, but this time music theory calls those intermediate notes between the first 7 letters of the alphabet flats. So there's a term in music theory called enharmonic. That is 2 different names for the same pitch. So you'll notice on the way up, the note between G and A was called G sharp. On the way down, the note between A and G is called A flat. That's because compared to A, the note is now flat on the way down. So I'll put the metronome on at 100 beats a minute here, and I want you to play along with me with the music that's on the screen. If you're on the alto sax, just start on the note E. Alto or baritone sax, start on the note E. Soprano or tenor, play what you see on the screen. Okay, so we'll put it at 100 beats a minute. We'll do a 6-beat count in. 1, 2, 3. The beauty of the chromatic scale is that if you can play one chromatic scale, you can play all 12 of them. Because the rule says each new note is a semitone higher or lower than the last note you play, depending on which direction you're playing the scale. So what that means is if we want to play an A flat chromatic scale instead of an A chromatic scale, we simply play the same notes, but we start and end on G sharp or A flat. So our highest note becomes high G sharp or A flat, and our lowest note is the G sharp or A flat. So let's think of it as an A flat chromatic scale. Here we go. If we wanted to start on the note a semitone higher than A sharp, the scale is exactly the same notes as the A chromatic scale, but we shift our starting point up a semitone. So we start on the note A sharp. We still play the full 12 different notes, the 13 notes including the octave, but we start and end on an A sharp, like this. Now finally, my recommendation is that when you practice the chromatic scale, that you do it as I've played it in this demonstration, not as per the music score version that I put on the screen just to explain the music theory. The best way to play the chromatic scale is non-stop. Don't stop when you hit your highest note and don't repeat it. So you just go straight up, and when you hit that octave note, come straight down. Now I recommend you practice your chromatic scales tongued and slurred. Use a metronome so that you know if you're getting any better as far as your ability to play the scale at speed. If at that 100 beats a minute mark, You really should be able to get to the point of playing as semiquavers at 100 beats a minute, like 1 eander, 2 eander, 3 eander, 4 eander, playing your chromatic scale at that speed. Now I slurred that, and you should practice tonguing and slurring. I hope you've gained something out of this tutorial. The chromatic scale should be your best friend on any instrument. Until you can play the chromatic scale, all 12 of them on any instrument you play, be that a banjo or a mandolin or a flute, tuba, whatever it is, in this case tenor saxophone, you really haven't explored your instrument. You haven't discovered all of the available notes that you can play. Now, whether you're reading music or improvising, playing without music, it's critical that you know all of the possible notes on your instrument. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and keep enjoying learning more each day about the saxophone. Bye for now.